Hey everyone, Sean here, and yes, it is that time of the year. 2022 was kind of a mixed bag for both the real world and even video games. A bunch of delays happened, so all the real juicy ones are going to be stuffed during the first half of 2023. I'm definitely looking forward to that, both sarcastically and for reals. But anyways, even worldly events such as the Ukraine and Russia war delayed the Advanced Wars Reboot Camp game, and it's nowhere to be found even after this time, with no updates at the moment. It's just dead silence. Despite that, there were a handful of big hitters standing above the rest of the games of the year 2022. Or were they? Well, I'ma just say that none of those games such as Ragnarok nor Elden Ring are on my list. They're not my cup of tea. It's just as simple as that. Although I lean more towards God of War, that'll be something for another day possibly. But I digress. Today it is indeed that time of the year, so I'm going to show you guys my list of top 10 games from 2022, and these are all brand new games that came out this year, just to make things clear. So here we go. Number 10. Splatoon 3. Splatoon is kind of a special franchise to me, where this is pretty much Nintendo's answer to the competitive shooters that have dominated a decade of gaming once upon a time. However, Splatoon has had its faults that were very apparent in not one, but two games. Specifically, not being able to play in a squad together with your friends in regular modes. You randomly either are with or against each other. However, in the third title, you can finally do all the basic features you'd easily find in a competitive shooter such as Call of Duty. It is baffling that it did take this long to get it right. Unfortunately, while the core gameplay is fun and all, I really don't have people to team up with at this moment, so I haven't had the motivation to just pick up and play the online multiplayer. Partially also due to other shooters veering towards the trend of battle passes that plays with the player's FOMO. You know, the fear of missing out. But mainly people around me have fallen off Splatoon by this time, which is a damn shame because it is fun with all the other features and refinements now here in the third game. But yeah, I just wish that playing with friends in basic fashion was in the mindset of the devs from the get-go. Otherwise, it's Splatoon. That's really all there is to it. And that is why I put this at number 10. Number 9. Digimon Survive. The idea of a visual novel game with Digimon thrown in there was something I was actually really looking forward to, because that's kind of what I wanted for a gateway for myself for these games, and having that Digimon touch should have been the cherry on top. Not that I'm a complete stranger to visual novel elements, but after playing Digimon Survive, in my eyes, it really wasn't able to nail neither of these genres quite right. The tactical RPG side was rather shallow and provided no real sense of, well, tactics, other than just unga bunga overpowering the enemy, steamrolling kind of monotony. Okay, that's a mouthful for something simple. Anywho, the visual novel side of things was unfortunately a letdown more ways than one. It was actually easily broken down with its simplistic mechanics. Even if you tried to play this with a blind eye or with willful ignorance to really immerse yourself into the game, and in order to shroud yourself within the mystery of the story provided in this game, the game itself really spells it out for you with the choices and its elements right in front of your face. So that made things a lot harder to enjoy the novel aspect of things. However, with all that said, I still had a good time with the story itself, with its interesting visuals to help complement it. It's sort of hard to say what could have easily fixed this side of the gameplay other than just getting rid of the color coding, or at least provide different modes to make things harder to figure out the dialogue choices. I don't know, I don't think there really is a black and white answer to that question. Putting that aside, the game's success was clearly affected by the near release of Xenoblade Chronicles 3, another Game of the Year contender. Either way, it was an interesting attempt, but who knows if we'll ever see another Digimon visual novel game on the digital horizon. I actually would be down for more visual novel stuff with Digimon. However, they definitely need to stick to one thing to be able to really refine the experience to make it a whole game rather than two subpar implementations. Number 8.
The hours to rain, pride and arrogance about their brain. Just one way, it's together now and never.
The King of Fighters 15!
The King of Fighters 15! Alright, so it was quite the wait for KOF fans since 14. Its end results were quite far from the goal of being a blockbuster hit, so things looked pretty shaky for SNK in KOF regards. However, since 15 was announced, it was a big sigh of relief. SNK did a much better job marketing the game as a whole to keep the flames of hype alive all the way up to its release back in February. The game looked way better in comparison to its predecessor, and its gameplay is definitely refined overall. It was something I was lapping for quite a bit with characters such as Antonov and King of Dinosaurs. It just felt good to pull off combos in the game with its max mechanics. However, I can't say this is a video game I'd recommend to everyone since its casual content is severely lacking, but this is a game for KOF fans and the fans only, especially with certain characters making their return to the roster. I would like to give credit for SNK for bringing back KOF and on the main face of the FGC as it was featured during the return of EVO during 2022. With more DLC on the way with its Season 2 announced, I hope to see the game continue to succeed for its player base and keep the fire alive and burning hotter than 14 could ever burn. Number 7.
Kitty, why don't you look after him for me?
What? Me? By myself?
Lesson 2. Learn to fight for others, not just for yourself.
Bayonetta 3. This year was finally the year the Umbra Witch made her return, albeit not wholly intact. Allow me to refer to the drama involved with the original voice actress Helena Taylor. Taylor called for a boycott on the game not long before it released. Taylor made a half-true statement about her pay, journalists called her out for it, and she strangely admitted to it. She since had appeared to have moved on. This whole situation definitely played a significant role for the franchise. Personally, it was a reminder to always wait for the other side of the story, even if that person broke NDA and carried much admiration from many fans and fellow voice actors. So naturally, I felt that Helena was in the good. This also helped remind people that voice actors continue to suffer underappreciation and minimum pay. That's the sort of silver lining of it here. So with all that, veteran voice actress Jennifer Hale has taken the helm as Bayonetta, and honestly I thought she did at least a decent job with the time she was given to familiarize with the character. Depending on how you look at it, I think it worked out because this Bayonetta story involved with, well, you guessed it, the multiverse and variants. Though admittedly I really like Bayonetta, and Helena Taylor had a lot to do with that as a whole. But given the circumstances, I can welcome Jennifer Hale as the new voice, and I will look forward to her future work as the Umbra Witch. The game itself, of course, was more of Bayonetta, keeping its core aspects, and even with its classy and that erotic fan servicey goofiness was mostly intact. The story felt, decent with its fun moments overall, as it felt like nothing was really building up to the end of it. It kinda was just a case of, oh, this happened and then that happened. Its gameplay sections could either be a hit or miss depending on how you like minigame sections or not, because there was plenty of that going on in Bayonetta 3. I actually did like the summoning aspect of it, as it even allowed you to incorporate them into your combos to some degree. And that is the new mechanic pretty much for this game. You can't deny that it offered good action and set pieces while the Nintendo Switch was running on all cylinders doing so. This game is for the fans of Bayonetta, and I think that's a good thing at the end, pleasing the people that matter the most, even though it is still a niche franchise at best. Perhaps the Helena Taylor situation actually helped Bayonetta to get to more eyes of those who didn't play Bayonetta at the time. Who knows? Sorry if this section was particularly long, because I only just beat Bayonetta 3 very recently, due to myself not only believing Helena Taylor at the time, but I also wanted to put my time into something else during its launch. Anyway, I think Bayonetta 3 sits well at number 7 on my list with all said reasons, and I give it a solid 7 out of 10. Number 6. Gran Turismo 7. So the prestigious racing simulator franchise made its return for 2022, and I still enjoyed it all in all. However, it was apparent that it was riddled with microtransactions and other malpractices that bogged down the racing experience, such as the lacking of selling cars and its campaign being somewhat plain. But the experience when actually racing and driving its cars is still an awesome experience. The PS5's haptic feedback is a welcoming addition that works well with GT7 if you don't have a steering wheel set. Of course, the graphics and sounds make it really fun to watch, especially during the replays, as always. At this point, all I can say is that if you own a PS5 and are willing to look past its cons, then I say give it a go. It is still Gran Turismo at the end of the day. Now, since the RX-7 is well within the roster, I'm still waiting for my Toyota Celica GTS to make it into the roster. Anyone? Number 5.
In this house, we bowl.
Nice try.
Here we go.
In their house, we duel.
KO.
In our house, we score.
That was awesome.
Nintendo Switch Sports. My Wii Sports Spirit was able to rekindle in the form of this game. While it did come with a decent amount of sports and a decent online structure, it felt pretty minimal at best. They should have went for more like a Mario Kart 8 approach, where your friends can just join you, wait till a slot opens, and then they can join in on the fun. This would have specifically worked really well for the bowling battle royale mode. It is fun for what it is, but that extra layer would have been potentially the great game breaker for Switch Sports. Otherwise, it just seems like a somewhat visual upgrade and a couple of features added in there. And yet, at this point, where the hell is baseball, boxing, and basketball? The controls were somewhat of a mixed bag for me as someone who made this channel around Nintendo couch co-op stuff, including Wii Sports. To me, it even felt like somewhat of a step down from Wii Sports Resorts. I couldn't even do my infamous curveballs consistently in Switch Sports. At this point, the Wii Sports Resort kind of feels like Marvel vs. Capcom 2 of the Wii Sports franchise. Yeah, I just said that. Anyways, there is still joy to be had that I definitely felt from the old days, but the execution cried for more ambition. Could have been worse, I guess, since it doesn't have any microtransactions like GT7, and I'm still a Nintendo Sports kind of guy, which is why it sits at number 5. Number 4.
I don't know what's happening here, but this looks like a job for All right then, you're with me.
Warner Bros. Multiverses. This is the game to pretty much compete with the ever so giant Super Smash Bros. Franchise. It does offer its own set of platforming fighting mechanics. It is for sure a good gateway to get those into that side of fighting games because it is indeed free to play. While yes, the free to play grind can be somewhat of a nightmare to deal with, but I think it deserves some purchase of sorts because of a number of things, including its up-to-date quality, along with the communication between the devs and players. Also, the fact that the netcode blows Smash Ultimate out of the water is something worth noting, along with its overall online experience. It's easy to play with your friends, the roster is ever so growing and still looks pretty exciting. I mean, we can possibly see Bugs Bunny, LeBron James, Gandalf, and Harry Potter on the same freaking screen, along with many other combinations, of course. Importantly, the gameplay feels something like that meets the standards of a Smash game while still being able to distinguish itself. They even include outfits and variants that include different voices, which further complements its already wonderful fan service for the players. At this point, I can definitely look forward to who else makes it into the roster. We have to remember that this roster is not exclusive for Warner Bros. Characters. It also has possibilities for guest characters, and that is a quote. So, who will be next? Only time can tell. But before I go into the top 3, I wanted to throw in some mentions, and unfortunately, they're all more on the disappointment side for this time around. My first one will go to DNF Duel, or Dungeon and Fighter Duel. DNF Duel is the fighting game entry for the free-to-play game franchise Dungeon and Fighter, as it was developed within Arc System Works along with aiding and Neopol. It boasts those beautiful and awesome cel-shaded graphics. A lot of fun playing it during the beta and bought it during release. This is the game Grand Blue Versus should have been. Although it has a robust online experience and training mode, everything else around it was just lacking. Kinda on the same page with KOF 15. This is the game for the FGC, or is it? It's hard to say with confidence because there were a number of players dropping the game quite early because of its severe lack of updates, at least good ones anyway, and communication like Guilty Gear Strive. It's a disappointment for me because not only it lacks casual player features, the competitive players lack the drive to continue to play because of its silence. It wasn't until now that they got a major update and now are going to add characters after all that time, which was about 6 months between now and the release, which is something pretty rare for a fighting game. Those new fighters are still in the works at the moment, other than Spectre being the first one to be revealed. It's just unfortunate because for a fighting game like this to be fun, it just didn't receive the standard treatment other fighting games get usually. My next disappointing mention is Mario Strikers Battle League. This game felt just timid or just plain Jane. It didn't do anything wild beyond its gameplay, mechanics, and visuals. The single player content is just severely lacking, just like a number of games on this list. Mario Strikers is unfortunately another victim here. Its online mode looked lackluster, so I didn't even bother with the game after playing it for 4 hours. There were other questionable things such as the lack of control over the goalie, like what the hell? I have to rely on RNG as a means to determine whether I win the game or not. Of course, it's not consistent either. On top of that, the roster was pretty small at the start, and they're just slowly adding the characters and stages for free to make it feel like it's continuously updating. My last disappointing mention is Overwatch 2. The game is admittedly fun still, but that's because it overall is the same game, other than the characters I haven't played and some of the reformatting for its modes, patch notes, etc, etc. I do welcome the 5v5 format change, but what I don't welcome is the shop. And that honestly is the biggest overhaul for Overwatch 2. I barely have gotten anything cool for cosmetics cause most of the stuff is locked behind real money, including the Battle Pass rewards. I was always fine for the most part when it came to loot boxes being just cosmetic stuff. I think the situation in Europe and other factors gave them the excuse to make that overhaul. What also grinds my gears is that the new characters are locked behind the Battle Pass. Even worse, characters like Ramatra are completely locked until you get to level 45. It's not level 55, sure, but it's still gameplay stuff locked behind a battle pass unless you cough up the dough. You can't even try them out like Kiriko. Like, who in the actual fuck thought this was a good idea in the first place? Of course this is Activision Blizzard after all, so I shouldn't be all that surprised. Not even games like League of Legends or Apex Legends do this kind of stuff. It's outrageous. When the shop is the biggest change you see, that should have been a big red flag. But here I am playing it here and there still because I don't want to miss out on characters like Ramatra, for example. But with that said, I am curious as to how the challenges are going to be to unlock characters like him. We'll just have to wait and see. Either way, it's a massive disappointment. Okay, so I think that's definitely enough for disappointments for one video. Let's get to the top 3 of things. Now this was quite difficult, but nonetheless, here we are. Number 3. Pokemon Legends Arceus. This is definitely one of the most ambitious main Pokemon titles in recent dates. Now that doesn't mean it was polished, as it definitely lacked that visual wow factor that one would have hoped for, but I really did like the gameplay parts of Legends. While it did retain the turn-based gameplay as usual, it somehow felt more dynamic than your average Pokemon game. There were some cool visual aspects with Legends, such as the character designs and the Hisuian Pokemon. Not to mention the animations for some of the really basic stuff within Pokemon like evolutions and trading were really cool. It also adds to the lore of Pokemon Diamond and Pearl, which happens to be my favorite Pokemon generation / title. The story here was pretty decent or entertaining at best, and the boss battles were something a little different to further spice up the Pokemon formula, however you take it. It's at number 3 because I just love all the design aspects and concepts for Legends, but there were some severe shortcomings like the lack of co-op features, including online battles and raids. So you can pretty much guess the other Pokemon game that tops this one. Where is it on this list? Well, number 2. Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. Okay, so it's actually at number 2, so not much of a suspense there. Sorry. Something worth noting here was that choosing between Scarlet Violet and Legends was pretty damn hard. Despite loving the combat and visual nuances in Pokemon Legends better, and having a higher score of 8 out of 10 versus Scarlet Violet's 6 out of 10 in my reviews at the time. I mean, I was pretty strict and hard on Scarlet Violet, so there is that. Scarlet Violet in the long run does have the replay value, cool looking Pokemon, online co-op features, and the open world structure with the 3 stories to play, and so on. Everything else is up to date naturally, so I'd give it to Scarlet Violet in the end. I know it sounds weird, but that's my honest feelings. Similar to Legends, Scarlet Violet felt like a lot of ambition and cool concepts, but the execution did not match that. This time, we can't really blame it on the Switch. It appears to be the lack of proper management from Game Freak to deliver this game with polish that we players should look forward to. This is a company that makes billions, and this is the visual result for a main Pokemon game at this point? They gotta do better in that department. Even Sword and Shield deserves some praise at this point with its animations and other visual aspects. Otherwise, it did have that same addicting gameplay experience on top of being open world. I do welcome the fact that I can do the gyms, the Team Star stuff, and also just to explore and fight Titan Pokemon in any order. There were some cool looking characters such as Nemona and Rika. Not to mention the Pokemon themselves look pretty good, and the new ones look pretty cool all in all, like I said. The Terra Raids is pretty fun, though not without that jank, but nonetheless something that continues to draw me in, especially with the incoming Pokemon such as Charizard and Cinderace. There are features I do welcome in this Pokemon game, such as the NPCs not going after you to battle you, because that would otherwise disrupt you during your exploration, especially if you find yourself a shiny Pokemon. This game will surely get the DLC treatment similar to that of Sword and Shield, so in the long run you'll be better off playing Scarlet Violet over Legends. Let's at least hope that this is a mark of the lessons learned from Pokemon, and hopefully this will be the start of hopefully quality control and just fun Pokemon games looking good once and for all. Alright, so with all that out of the way, my game of the year for 2022 is going to number 1.
Submit. Your reckless actions endanger the world.
Amy, is that you?
Sonic Frontiers. Yep, he really came out swinging with the Sonic 2 movie with flying colors, Sonic Origins. We also got the Sonic Prime series on Netflix that just came out not too long ago. But let's not forget, of course, Sonic Frontiers with its November release. In comparison with other recent game releases under the Sonic name, Sonic Frontiers was a success, receiving quite a bit of positive feedback as a whole. The game came out better than expected for a number of people. For me, not only Sonic and Friends received a much welcome change in the dialogue and tone, the open world format gameplay and short but fun levels, its soundtrack is something to be behold of its own. Now, is it the best? That's very debatable, but many players, including myself, have enjoyed the absolute banger of a soundtrack very much here. I thought it was complete robbery that it did not get a nomination at all at the Game Awards, at least, even for its soundtrack. But anyway, I think Sonic Frontiers deserves this spot because of their hard work, dedication, and passion to make sure they're pleasing the fans in comparison to the other top games, and I'm a big Sonic fan, so I definitely felt that, at least to some extent. The end product is literally miles ahead of Pokemon games in terms of quality. It is also funny and worth noting that both of these franchises have gone for the open world format. Now, it does cry for its own polish, sure, like the pop-in being really annoying and all, but overall, it was a cool experience. My love for Sonic games made its return the moment I was playing level 1-2. Hilarious because that was some of the hardest levels early on. I feel like Sonic is no longer just kid-friendly, but it is doing a good job pleasing more people, including the Sonic fanbase, especially the older ones. It is a good sign that the Blue Hedgehog is still getting love from people all over the world, and let's not forget that we're still getting the Knuckles spin-off series sometime down the road, along with the eventual release of the Sonic 3 movie. And of course, Sonic Frontiers is actually getting DLC over the course of 2023, so the eating is still good for us Sonic fans. So, Sonic Frontiers takes the Game of the Year for 2022 in my book. Don't forget to hit the thumbs up if you did. Subscribe for more videos in 2023. I really appreciate it, guys. So, here is to 2023 because the first half is going to be jam-packed with games already. Even January's got something cooking up. Alright, I'll see you guys in the next one. Sean out.